Welcome to the Confidently Balance Your Hormones podcast. My name is Dee Davidson, and I'm a hormone health expert, master mindset coach, and multiple wellness business entrepreneur. I'm obsessed with helping you experience hormone balance, confidence, self-love, and live a life full of joy. I know we're about to have so much fun together, so thank you so much for pushing play today. And now let's begin. Welcome back to the Confidently Balance Your Hormones podcast. This is your guide, Dee Davidson. My energy, oh my gosh, I woke up this morning and thought to myself, today's the day I'm going to record this podcast all about self-love and put my vulnerable story and journey out to the world. There's many pieces to that, of course. However, today I want to talk about my brand, Confidently Love Yourself, how it came to be and what it's all about, what I'm all about, how I got here. Because I'm reminded a lot of times by the people that have been in my life for a while that, it might look like my life's perfect. It might look like I have everything under control, if you will, which I just have to laugh about that I eat all organic food and I never have a drink and I don't drink a lot of coffee and I don't have a lot of stress. And that's simply not true, my friends. I have empowered myself with the tools and I have given myself the love and grace that I give to my clients and to the people around me. And I continue to have to remind myself of that as a human. We are all humans having an experience right now. And so it's never going to be all roses and chocolates and all the things that you would love. The ultimate highs in life, you don't ride that out for a life, right? We know that. That's not realistic, that we're going to only have good thoughts and positive experiences. We have to just learn how to come back to self, stay grounded, have the tools, feel those emotions and not store them, and keep moving forward, one foot in front of the other. I know it's so cliche, but I thought it would be important to get some of my personal story out to the world so that you can understand that I too have had my struggles. It's not a woe me podcast episode. It's more of a sharing and connecting with my audience and my listeners. But after all, it is February. It's the month of love. I think every day should be the day of love. But today we're going to just talk about a different kind of love, the kind of love that starts with you. So many women, especially, are giving to their job, to their community, to their kids, to their significant other, taking care of parents. And then they are left with little love for themselves. And it always amazes me when I have conversations with clients on my one-on-one sessions and they tell me that they don't love themselves. They've come to that point where they're living with regrets. They're guilty about something. They don't like the way they look. They don't like the number on the scale. And it makes me really, really just sad. And that's also one of the reasons I love doing what I do, because it's amazing to see women show up for themselves, heal those parts of themselves that they're not so happy with, come to acceptance, which doesn't mean, I'm not saying like you don't like the number on the scale, but you're stuck with it, but that you accept that you are where you are. You love your body for showing up for you every day. You see life as a gift and you elevate your joy and your well-being. And that's mind, body, soul. That is whole health. That is what we work on together. When I came up with this confidently love yourself, and I have to give Michael a little credit here every time he says confidently love yourself, that's a good one. We came up with that together, as well as getting feedback from my friends, family, my business network in regard to what they think of when they think of Dee Davidson and what I bring to the world. What are my gifts? How do I show up? Over and over again, I heard that people see me as a confident person. I would say that is true. I'm pretty confident in most things, but I wasn't always so confident. I have gone through lots of bouts of self-doubt, lack of self-love, self-esteem, things like that. So I wasn't always so confident in myself. And we're going to talk about building your own confidence and how I wouldn't say I arrived, how I got to where I am today and continue to maintain that. And then the love yourself piece. Well, it all starts with self love. And that's my belief. If you don't love yourself enough to go for the walk today, you're not going to do it. If you don't love yourself enough to choose to make a home cooked meal over McDonald's, you're not going to pick up the utensils and get the groceries and do all this stuff. If you are overcommitted to everyone else and not yourself, you're not loving yourself. So, in order to achieve confidence, it's going to start with the love of self, going within and being truly honest with yourself, really taking personal responsibility for all the pieces of your lifestyle and where you're at and how you feel. And it's a process. Healing is hard. It is hard. I'm not going to say, oh, healing's so fun, like it's unicorns and rainbows. No, healing is hard and it's a choice. But you have a choice to live the rest of your life settling for however you feel, good or bad right now, or you can continue to improve, evolve, see higher rates of enjoyment in life, have more energy, better sleep, love what you see in the mirror, have ultimate health. You can't have all those things. Those are your birthright. And I do believe that the mind is a powerful thing and it's got to start there. So if you're listening to this and you don't believe you can have those things or you're worthy of those things, it's going to be an uphill battle. But if you can finish this episode today and go, I believe that I can. And if Janie Lee, that I look at, who by the way, probably isn't as happy and healthy as you think, you're looking at her social media, which has really hurt us, I think, if you can limit the time that you're scrolling social media and that whole comparison thing. But if Janie Lee can look like that or have that, I can too. That's a start. That's a willingness. And I love working with the willing. So again, you can't have confidence unless you love yourself enough to show up, to do the things that lead to you feeling the way you want to feel, to lead to the health that you want to see on those labs. So you have to love yourself. Yeah, it all starts with self-love, and February is a great month to do this episode. And as you do that and you show up for yourself every day, your confidence is going to notch up a little more every single day. I promise you, because you're going to feel so good after that walk that you went on, or you taking 10 deep breaths in the morning. Yes, I showed up for myself. Your confidence, I can do this. I'm deserving. I'm willing. It's going to continue to notch up. And then you too will be looking in the mirror saying, man, I love my life and I love myself. And I know that sounds so quirky, but it's true. And I have my clients do that. I have my clients look themselves in the mirror and say, I love you, Dolores. That's my name, by the way. D is short for Dolores. I love you, Dolores. I love you. I love you. I love you. And look at yourself in the eyes. You will too be there. I promise you. But the first step is to believe it, that you're deserving, willing, you can have it. And the second step is willingness, because if, we get on sessions or you're fighting yourself with excuses every day, oh, it's too cold to go out for that walk today, or I have to go help my mother instead of preparing a meal. We can find all the excuses in the book, but when you truly find self-love and self-worthiness, you will start to understand that you don't need to feel guilt about choosing yourself, that there are certain foundational things that we're going to talk about today that are super important to not let go to the wayside and to be consistent with. And it's just going to change your life if you do some of these things. So let me share a little bit about my self-love journey. It hurts me when I have to go back and reflect. And I do share my story with people because, again, people see this version of polished D on Instagram or Facebook or hear me on a podcast. But there's a lot of, hurt and a lot of rebuilding myself and a lot of struggles and challenges. And by the way, my life's not perfect right now either. I have different struggles that I'm dealing with right now. But back in 2016, hard to believe, it was 2016, I was what I thought about to live the American dream. I had this amazing business. I was partnered with a company that got out the message of non-toxic living, and I was traveling around the country, speaking and bringing awareness around the fact that people are looking at food labels and exercising, but not understanding. And God bless Kennedy. I'm so excited to see him up there speaking on this topic. But people have no idea that there's little or no regulation around your shampoo, your deodorant, and your makeup and all these things, and how many harmful chemicals are actually in those products. And so I was living my best life. Again, I was top salesperson in this company. I remember my ex-husband actually saying to me that he was wondering, could anything actually go wrong with this because our life was just going so well financially. The relationship piece, the connection piece wasn't there, but we had the financial means. We had just bought this ridiculous house that, like, of course, I feel like I manifested and always wanted. I would go into these homes of my customers, and there were these big houses with vaulted ceilings and glass showers and things like that, and just dreamy, right? So I accomplished that. I just crushed my business and was able to move into that cul-de-sac with those houses and all that jazz stuff that you think so important. My perspective has shifted on that so much. Nothing against it. I still think like a beautiful home is a wonderful thing, but that is the least of things to bring you joy when there's so many other missing things. Self-love being one of them. You can't have a good relationship or connection with others if you don't have a good relationship with yourself. It starts with yourself. So remember that. So we had just moved into this house 6 weeks into moving into this big house that I thought was going to bring us so much joy. My kids were toddlers. My son was soon to be going into first grade, actually, my oldest. And we thought we're settled in our forever home in this wonderful neighborhood. And my ex-husband, out of nowhere, there was no discussion leading up to this. He came home and he said to me, he was crying. He worked night shift, which was a huge strain on our relationship. It was a huge strain on me. I felt that I was a single mother before I was a single mother. He came home from work and he said, he was crying, and I had just woken up because he worked night shift. And he said, I can't do this anymore. And I'm like, well, can't do what? We just moved into this beautiful house. My business is great, yada, yada, yada. We just had a housewarming party. All our friends and family are over the weekend before. And he just pointed at me and then him that he didn't want to be in this relationship. He didn't want to work it out. He wasn't in love with me and he wanted out. And I was just distraught. I never saw my life that way. My parents had been married 50 plus years. I grew up Catholic. When I took those vows, I took them for life. And I was distraught. I thought that like we had something that now going through therapy and doing all of this self-love work and stuff, I realized that we really didn't have what I convinced myself we had with the connection and relationship with self and his own relationship with himself and things like that. So not to get into too much detail, basically my world came to a crumbling pile where I was like, oh my gosh, we have this house that we just bought. He doesn't want to work it out. And oh my gosh, this person says that they don't even know how long they haven't been in love with me for. When I asked, was it before kids, after kids? They they said they didn't know, but that they hadn't been happy for a long time. So here I am with these two kids and this beautiful house, and now a husband that is telling me he doesn't want to be in this marriage anymore. This is the moment that changed everything for me. Many of you have probably experienced something similar, whether it was a divorce, loss of a loved one, infertility, a diagnosis, it could be a career shift, or any other life-altering event that forced you to return home to yourself. And if you haven't, and you're finding yourself conflicted, maybe the relationship that you're in is leaning towards having a shift, or your job is really offering too much stress, then you might be on the brink of what I call an awakening. And I know it can seem really cliche to use that term, but I believe that this marriage led to my awakening, and I'm forever grateful for it. At the time, it was probably the worst in my whole life, the worst time, the worst emotional roller coaster of fears, a lot of crying, a lot of things going on there, and it was really, really tough. I had, these two toddlers, this house, and we'll fast forward in a minute, but it was a lot. But also, it forced me to grow and go back within to heal the parts of me that really needed to be healed and explored, and understand that we are whole. We don't really need outside people to save us or validation or things like that. And when we go on this inner healing journey, we start to understand all the parts of ourselves that we might sometimes want to abandon. But that is part of whole health healing, mind, body, and spirit. And for me, the moment that marriage ended, it was time to go back, to return to self, to explore some of my behaviors, limiting beliefs, the things that had led me to self-abandon, if you will. And I went to therapy for the first time. I grew up in a household where therapy is not a thing. But a friend of mine probably got sick of listening to me, said, "You really need to go to therapy." And I am a huge advocate for therapy. It's a great place to, work through some of these things and not be storing them. And my therapist looked at me when I was pouring my heart out about this situation, mostly talking about my ex-husband and his mental state, and how I know he's making a mistake and he has a hard job and he works a lot of hours, and even blaming myself. She looked at me and she simply asked, "What about you, Dee?" Because I was so concerned about him and my kids and everybody else. But what about me? Didn't I deserve happiness? Didn't I deserve health? Didn't I deserve a break? I was so chronically stressed and fatigued. And that question was really a turning point in regard to loving myself, to nurturing myself, to taking care of myself the way that I had not in a long, very, very long time. It was the first time in years I had been asked about me. What about me? And it was the first time I truly started asking myself the same thing. What about me? And till this day, that's a question that I have for my clients. I have them when they're self-abandoning or putting others first or not saying no, overcommitting. I want you to ask yourself, what about you? What about you? Because you matter, and it's your birthright to be happy and healthy. And until you start to say, what about me? Your health is not going to elevate to the places that you want. You are not going to be living ultimate joy because you're compromising your own needs. It's not selfish, by the way, to choose yourself. You are not selfish. I'm not saying to be selfish in that way. I'm saying that going to the gym, cooking meals that appeal to you and your health needs, saying no to a night out with the girls or a date night that you just don't have the energy for is not selfish. That is called taking care of yourself and asking yourself, what about me? So let's talk a little bit about what happened from here. Again, I had spent so much energy, and I look back to childhood. A lot of this stuff does stem from our inner child and things that happened before the age of 10. I didn't have a terrible childhood, so I don't want to position it that way, but we all have things that happened early on that mold us to be the person and have the beliefs that we have and do the things that we do. And I had spent a lot of my time and energy trying to keep the peace, hold everything together, keep everyone else happy at the cost of my own health and happiness. And I thought that was love, but in reality, I had abandoned myself in the process. And I know many of you listening have probably done the same thing, or you're shaking your head. You might even have tears right now. It's okay to get a tissue because you're like, this is me and this is what I'm doing. And how do I get help. It was hard work to reclaim myself. The real healing wasn't just about moving on. It wasn't like, okay, yep, that wasn't a good relationship, because that's the reality. We had a very unhealthy relationship. We really should have never gotten married. And I don't like to shit on myself, because we clearly got married and had my two beautiful boys, and that's a wonderful thing. And that will is what's supposed to happen and part of our soul's journey or soul's contract. So again, I'm not angry about it, right? I've done a lot of this healing work to reclaim myself. The healing was really about mind, body, and spirit. You cannot heal taking a bunch of supplements, getting some labs, just eating organic food or exercising. You have to address mind, body, spirit together, because they are connected. They are not separate. And if you haven't followed Dr. Gabor Mate, I highly recommend it, because he talks a lot about this. And I had to release tears. When you release tears, it's good to cry. It's a release for your nervous system. I had a lot of anger, and I still have anger, by the way. So I manage that the best that I can. I'm not, again, angry that I'm not married or anything like that, but it's a lot of deep, deep work, a lot of things that you might be angry about over a lifetime. I don't act out, or, I'm not like freaking out about things, but I know inside when I'm really honest with myself that there's anger there that I continue to have to be aware of and process in a healthy way. Anger is not a bad emotion. Emotions aren't bad. We just have to not tie judgment to our emotions, but we are humans. We're humans. We have emotions. I had to do some deep releases with some, spiritual healers and shamanic healers and things like that, which I continue to do. And ultimately, I had to forgive myself for choices that I had made that when you look in retrospect, what the heck, I was an idiot, right? But that's okay. Everything happens for a reason. I had to forgive my ex-husband. I had to forgive a lot of people. We continue to reflect, and you can't hold on to the poison. I know you've probably heard that before, but it's true. You have to forgive and bless and release things, or else you're storing them. If you haven't read the book, The Body Keeps Score, it's a great book. Your body's keeping score. So you can either release and work through these things, or they're going to manifest in your health in negative ways. Um, because like so many, I fell into the trap of blaming myself for my failed marriage. And we tend to be so compassionate with others, but where's that same grace for ourselves? So I had to unlearn people pleasing, the guilt, constant need for external validation. That's why I was like top in the company that I was with. And I've always been an overachiever and burnt myself out, literally just total burnout, into my 40s, because I was looking for external validation through those things. And I had to learn how to love myself and truly and apologetically do it, which at first it can be uncomfortable. And that's why it's important to work with someone like myself who's by your side, and have a therapist and a support team. You might need several people, and that's okay. I'm not an expert in all things, and your therapist isn't an expert in all things, and your physical doctor isn't an expert. So you need a team of people to help you really get back to mind, body, spirit health. It's just one shift at a time, one small shift. That's how I got to where I am now, to the pictures that you see on social media. And when people say, when I ask, what do you think of me when you see me? And they say confident and healthy and glowing. That didn't happen overnight. And I will tell you, it actually took a few years out of that collapsed marriage to feel good about myself in the mirror, to feel good with myself, taking myself on dates, being alone, all of that stuff. So it took some time. And at first, self-love felt really foreign, and it felt really selfish. And I struggled to do things for myself without guilt. But I started with just a small, consistent shift at a time. For example, I was taking my kids to the Y prior to all of this. I love the Y. We took the kids to the swim lessons, all of that. And when I went through this divorce, the Y was literally a lifesaver for me. And I'm so grateful for the Y. The child care or child watch, I think they called it. You got up to 2 hours. I used every minute of that. At first, I felt guilty putting my kids in this little bubble room so that I could go do things for myself. And then I realized it was really good for them too, to be around other kids and other adults and have that time. And I was also setting a great example for them that I was taking care of myself. They know until this day I love working out and I love going for walks and taking care of myself. That physical activity is something that I think is important, and I know that I've passed that on to them. So I showed that example, and also work ethic. They knew that even though they were very young, I was going in with my computer, or leaving with my computer, I should say. I got my hour of movement in through my workout classes or whatever I was doing. And then the second hour, I sat at the tables and I worked on my business so that I could provide for my kids at going into, again, being a single mother. And so that was how I started to shift, because otherwise it was me. And I do have some great parents, but they're very active for their age. And I didn't have a lot of extra help. And they've always seen their dad, of course, he's been present, but the majority of child care time was with me. So this is how I started to rebuild the self-love and the self-care, by thinking about, like, all right, what's going to work for me, and what's a little shift that I can make. And by the way, doing that first thing in the morning helped me to be fully present with them afterwards. I wasn't thinking about, like, oh my gosh, I got to check my emails a million times, or I got to make that phone call to that client. That didn't make me a bad mom. It made me a better one. It still makes me a better one. My kids still know that I do those things, that I prioritize those things. And also, I have calls with moms who say, I'm not that mom. And they mean, to clarify, I'm not the mom that's going to take time away from my kids to work out or to go for a walk or something like that. Well, I think we should all be that mom, because especially if you have daughters, you're showing them an example that is so great, that you have to take care of yourself as well as others. And it's not selfish. And if you lose your health or something happens, who's going to take care of your family? So again, doesn't make you a bad mom. It makes you an even better one. Your mood is better, your energy is better, you're healthier, you're setting an example, so many great things. And day by day, I built this foundation to where I'm at now that I still follow. And I'm going to share with you now. So let's talk about some of the things that I do to maintain self-love and my confidence. Number one is I start my day with myself. The rest of the day, I know people are going to be tugging at me. My clients, my podcast editor who's going to edit this, my kids, my whatever. Everyone's going to be taking time up. And I'll probably have very little time to myself once that day gets started and I'm out of bed. So we tell my clients it's super important to start your day with yourself, even if it's only 10 minutes, with setting intentions, not a to-do list, but intentions of, how do I want to feel today? Who am I seeing? Kind of run the film through your head. Like, who am I seeing today? What appointments do I have? How do I want to feel? How do I want to show up in those scenarios? And envision that, because your mind is a powerful thing and your thoughts attract your experience. That is a real thing. I believe it. I live it. I know it in my heart and soul. So set the intention of how you want to feel for the day, and whatever talk I need to have with God. I grew up Catholic. I'm not super churchgoer, but I do have a strong faith in God. If you're listening and you don't, that's okay. If you have spirit or universe or whatever your thing is, I just think with a higher power of some sort, it really helps you get through the tough times. And I have those talks with God, my divine team, and I ground myself before anything else. Because if you start and your mind is going crazy and you hop out of bed and you're running around, you're gonna have a really hard time for the rest of the day, and your nervous system is going to be so stimulated. So start the day with yourself and do those things. The second thing is nourish my body. I will admit that in the past, when I get stressed or things are crazy, I can neglect nourishing my body, as much as I post about it and talk about it and coach about it. And meaning that I can just grab a protein bar that is clean protein bar, but protein bars are dead food or dead energy. When we talk about food, I want you to think of the fact that everything is energy, including food. You're an energetic being, and so is food. Some foods are high vibration, some are low, like alcohol is a low vibration food. processed food. It went through a machine, it got processed. A lot of the nutrition came out of it. It's a dead food. So I'm very aware that I can quickly just grab a protein bar or something like that that's been processed. And I know that is maybe not the lowest vibration, but not the highest vibration. So I'm really conscious about going to whole single ingredient foods like fruits, vegetables, and meats that haven't been processed over that. Also, skipping meals. I'm the person who gets really busy and I'm like, oh, shoot, it's been 7 hours since I ate. So I have to be really conscious of nourishing my body because how do we expect our body to show up for us, to stay in a good state, to heal, to give us energy? All of those things help our hormones and have healthy cycles and all of this is so tied into nutrition and nourishing your body. So I don't skip meals mostly, not perfect. Want to keep reiterating that I too have struggles and I have to get myself back in line. And I stay present with what my body needs for that day. So certain times of your cycle, and if you haven't downloaded my seed cycling guide on my website, confidentlyloveyourself.com under the wellness toolkit, there's a cool seed cycling guide that helps with hormones if you're still cycling. And that's part of knowing what your body needs. Different times in the cycle, your body needs more red meat, more this, more carbs, etc. So tune in. That's something that I teach my clients when we work together. So what does my body need today? If I'm doing a crazy workout, weight training, I need more protein. So I have to tune in, and that's something that I do to support my body ongoing. I'm aware of my energy. So when I talk about energy, and you're a conscious being, my friend, I talk about energy with all things. What are my thoughts? If I have a thought that is negative, which is normal, I forget how many negative thoughts we have a day, I will catch myself. I'm really good at catching myself and then counteract that with a positive thought. And it's not positive toxicity, by the way. It is being aware and then changing your perception of that thought. I again look at the energetic values of the foods that I'm eating. I eat according to the metabolic typing test. Well, if you haven't taken the metabolic typing test, that's also under my wellness toolkit. Everyone has different needs, and that's a really easy test that you can take to find out what foods are vibrationally and energetically best for your body. So I pay attention to that. And then the people that I'm with, I choose very wisely who I let into my world, who I allow to work with me and become a client. I don't just take anyone on. There's a whole onboarding process. The people in my world who I'm having phone calls with, texting with, all of that stuff, what I'm reading, that's also energetically affecting us. And people are either going to be pluses or minuses. So they're either going to add value and good energy to you, or they're going to be energy vampires and suck the life out of you, literally. So I'm very aware of my energy on all of those fronts. I move my body most days. You do need at least 1 day of rest, but it could just be a light walk if you love getting out. But you have to also listen to what your body needs that day. I used to be so strict with today's a back and by day, tomorrow is my boot camp day. And I've learned after functional lab testing and how much my body was in this exhaustive phase because, as I described, I am a single mom of two teenage boys now. Plus, I run a couple of businesses, my household. There's a lot going on here. So if I were to do boot camps 4 days a week, my cortisol is going to be crazy. Inflammation, my gut health's going to go out the window. I know because I've actually been there and I thought I looked really good. But when I looked at my labs, my body was in this phase where luckily I wasn't in a state of disease yet, but I was headed there. So I'm really careful with how I move my body appropriately. And I do strength training because we do need that as women for insulin resistance and weight management and things like that. But I do gentle yoga. I do stretch. Sometimes I go for walks outside or hikes. So I move my body daily. Sometimes it's just dancing. Today it was actually I danced around. My puppies were looking at me like I was crazy, but move your body because again, your energy and energy gets stagnant and we need to move so that it doesn't create blocks. And your energy will come down and you'll be like, blah. So move your body and, trampoline, run, whatever you enjoy doing, do it. Prioritize sleep. I have no problem sleeping. I'm happy to say at 51, I fall asleep, I stay asleep, and it's awesome. But I do have a wind down routine that I share with my clients. Rest is non-negotiable. Your rest and repair is so important for all of your processes, your hormones, your immune system, your digestive system, nutrient absorption, your nervous, everything is so tied to prioritizing sleep. And if you're not getting good sleep, we need to talk about why, because there's probably some hidden stressors. And also, you probably need a good wind down routine, morning routine, and everything in between. So it's something that I can really help you with. I avoid scroll fest. I call it scroll fest. Mindless news and doom scrolling that drains your energy. And you get into the whole thing of comparing. Oh, Janie Lee looks like she's got a new house and a new boyfriend, and her kids are getting on a roll. And we can get into this. So I go on social media because my business is on there. And I always say if I didn't have a business, I wouldn't be on social media. But I do, and it thrives on there, right? So I go on, do what I need to do, and I do try not to scroll for too long. I ask myself hard questions, and those hard questions are, am I operating out of love and integrity with my clients, my kids, my partner, and most importantly, myself? How is this choice serving me? If I'm going to go get a donut, again, there's no guilting or shaming. Like if you want the thing and you ask yourself the question and you still want it, then have it, right? It's not, I don't eat all organic food. I don't eat all home cooked meals. Every drink isn't, high quality filtered water. But I ask myself the questions, how is this serving me? And am I operating out of love and integrity? Am I taking care of my vessel that God gave me? Because we only get one this time around. Am I really truly taking care of myself? And then I ask that question with my clients. Am I giving the best service? Am I being honest with them? And all of those things, my kids, how am I treating them? Am I having empathy? My partner, that is important. I ask myself hard questions. And I ask myself, if a friend were in my shoes, what advice would I give her? So if you're beating yourself up every day and saying, oh, these pants don't fit and my hair's terrible, or, my skin's aging, or I'm such a bad mom, what would you say if you heard your friend say that? Take your own advice and really, again, give yourself some grace and love. It's so important. I know that it's easier said than done, but it gets easier. It is a practice. All of these things are a practice, including setting boundaries and saying no, which is the next thing. I had such a hard time, as I just explained, saying no, setting boundaries, choosing myself. There's no more people pleasing at my expense, right? So these are things we work on as well. And when you do that, you start to say no to others, which means you're saying yes to yourself, and you're not expending energy where you didn't have the energy to expend. So I'm really good at setting boundaries. And even I spoke at a conference, and the man who introduced me, he said, oh, and Dee Davidson, she's really good at setting boundaries. You have to set up an appointment to get on a calendar to speak to her. And everyone was laughing. But that was something I had to learn. It was a skill, and that's something that I help my clients with without feeling guilt or feeling like a bad person or feeling like they're letting people down or that they're selfish. Hydration. Oh, I barely had water before, and now I make sure that I water myself properly with half my body weight in water every single day. And make sure that you understand that hydration can also come from fruits and vegetables and foods. Hydration is important. And don't forget your minerals, like your salt, your real salt and things like that, that help absorb that hydration into this cell. So you get that at a cellular level. It's not just water. You also need minerals. If you have questions about that, reach out, shoot me a message on Instagram or on Facebook. And lastly, gratitude. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize how much of an impact gratitude really had on my outlook with everything in life, on my vibe, on just attracting more. When you're grateful, you attract more of that. When you're negative, you're a magnet for negative things. I'm sorry to tell you that. And thought awareness that we talked about is important. Our minds are so powerful, and our thoughts, they can either serve you or they can sabotage you. So practicing gratitude Every morning when I do my prayer or my intention setting, I think about some things that I'm grateful for and what I'm looking forward to today. And then at the end of the day, I do this with my kids, and I have for many years since I implemented a gratitude practice. Again, I have them do this as well. And my son, when he's at his dad's, because we share time, he'll text me and say, "Don't forget to do your gratitude prayer." And it will change things. If you're not stopping to focus on the good, you're going to have a really tough time finding the good in your life, and you're going to be looking for all of the problems and all the things that are going wrong. And not only do I do that in the morning and at night, but throughout the day, I just love all the interactions that I have with people and the stories that are shared with me, and even just the little tiny things like the nice person at the grocery store. You bet when I walk away from that person, I will be like, "Thank you for that interaction. That was awesome." Because we're all having a lot of beautiful things happen, not just the things that are on the political posts that are killing so many people. They're just letting it eat away at them. And we really have no control at the end of the day of that stuff, or the news, or your friend calling and venting to you, and all of that. So practicing gratitude and thought awareness is so, so important. As well as I have to tie into that, using your inner guidance and your intuition. It's really important to go within. And if you have a gut feeling, that's a real thing. Our gut has more nerve endings than our brain. If you have a gut feeling and you ignore it, you're probably going to end up in a situation that you're not going to like. And then you're going to have to deal with that. So when you have that inner guidance, follow it, whether it be with a food choice, with a relationship, with a job. You're not stuck. I promise you, you're not stuck. Seek the help. And if you don't know what that help is, I don't know if I'll know what it is, but ask around and ask the higher powers, universe, spirit, God, to bring you the people, the tools. I've done this so many times in my life, and I'm so grateful that someone just synchronicity happens, someone shows up. So make sure that you use your intuition, don't ignore it, and then ask people, ask higher power to bring you that. Healing's a journey. It's not a destination. I wish I could tell you that, yeah, if you do the 6-month program with me, you're there. It's never going to end. As long as you are living this human experience, there will just be different things. You'll have more tools, hopefully. You'll be evolving, expanding, and you'll have those ups and downs just as I do. But have learned to surrender as much as I can. I can't always. Sometimes I get stressed too, but as much as I can, I realized that my biggest lesson from that unexpected divorce was that we're never in control. I never thought that I would be divorced with 2 kids and all of this. So I've learned to surrender, and a lot of people are trying to control, 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 and it ends up stress, cortisol, inflammation, and disease, by the way. So we have to remind ourselves of these principles I just talked about. Your principles might be different, but those are some basic things that have really helped me that I hope help you. And the difference now is that I always return home to myself, knowing that I came into this world by myself. I heard this somewhere, and I will be leaving by myself, as you will too. And so you need to return home to yourself every single day and nurture yourself and make choices that are good for you, not for your husband, not for your kids, not for your parents, for you. It is not selfish. And that's why I do what I do today, because I've been where you are, likely different circumstances. And the journey isn't just about science and labs and supplements or medications even. Yes, testing's powerful, medicine's powerful, supplements can help. Hormone functional lab testing can help you take the guesswork out of your healing. But no matter what the data says, and I say this all the time, your healing also is going to require self-love, getting back in alignment, because you're likely out of alignment if you're having symptoms, and a commitment to showing up for, guess who? Yourself daily. If this resonates with you, let's talk, because I'll be right by your side. And I hope that today's episode has inspired you to just start, just one small shift at a time. Book a session. Let's have a conversation. You're worthy, you are whole, and you are never alone, my friend. Sending you so much love today and every day. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Confidently Balancing Your Hormones. If you enjoyed today's episode, I'd love for you to share it with a friend and also hit follow at the top of this podcast. If you have a couple of minutes and you can leave a quick review, it will help other women in need find this podcast. You can find me on Instagram at confidently_love_yourself. I would love to stay connected and hear from you.